What's going on, guys? I'm over here streaming the Puget Sound Repeater Group Net. I'm not even actually listening to it. Nobody's even really watching it. Uh, it's kind of interesting how YouTube will end up being. Anyway, looking at this and looking at this, and I was just thinking, I'm like, man, I used to talk on the radio for hours every day. And there used to be a really good group of guys on 3913, and then we started our own group on 3930 because it got too big. And but before that, I just basically I started as a technician like almost most of us did, and I would get on 10 meters, and there wasn't anything else. That was it. And once it was dark, it was done. It was over. So never got into the 2 meter scene at all. I'd always fiddled around with 2 meters, but what I found was um, it was like you could check into a net or something like that on 2 meters, but you usually, weren't going to find somebody to have a conversation with for a very long time on 2 meters, and if you did, somebody would invariably get upset that you were having too much fun. I learned that very early on with the 2 meters and the 440 and all that, and so, or you were using a Bowfang and they would find out and they would give you a hard time because you were using it, not because it sounded bad. And so then there was, basically, when I first got my license, there was a lot of nets and stuff like that. And this might have even been one of the ones I was listening to. But at the time, I lived in Washington when I first got my tech. I moved pretty quickly after I got my license and moved to Oregon. And then I moved to California, and then I moved to Arizona, and then I moved to California, and then I moved to Oregon, and then I moved to Washington, then I moved to Arizona. But, well, it's been the same thing everywhere I've been. The 2 meter people are gatekeepers. And if you're having fun and they're not, they're not part of the fun, then they ain't happy about it, and they'll even go so far as to tell you to get off of their repeater because you're not a club member. You are, some outsider. I've seen that everywhere. And these people, they just like to have a repeater so they can have power and control because they don't have any other part of their life where they're in control of it the way they want to be. Something like that. So anyway, I when I upgraded to my general, I started to get on the Triple H net, and we're talking like 2014. And then I started really early on. I started tinkering with radios. My second radio was the Swan 350. And but I would make a couple of contacts on 10 meters during the day, and I would get like a couple of random contacts here and there. And when I would hear people contesting and stuff, if they were somewhere far away, I would get random contacts with those people. And I would not get on 80 meters because I had already heard what was on there. And at that time, I think they were on 3840. And it just changed to 3845 to 3846. And then there was the really nasty Canadian people on 20 meters on 14313. And I don't remember ever really hearing anything on 7200, but I'm sure it was going on. So I basically started to do different nets, the Ole Miss net, the Century Club net, Triple H net. I didn't really understand what this YL system was because I didn't hear any YLs on there, so it seemed like a bunch of people on there that weren't YLs. And then there was the Maritime net and some other stuff. There was a bunch of real snotty California hams on 20 meters, or not 20, 40. And they even if you didn't know them, you just listened to them, they sounded like a bunch of arrogant douchebags. And, well, that's really what they were. I mean, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. But in their world, that's just normal behavior. So I was never really interested in having conversations with people, rag chewers from California. Nothing against you guys, but a lot of you guys are douchebags. And arrogant, rich, overprivileged, like to play little games on the air. Just stupid stuff, petty crap. Um, so I just really wasn't interested in that, and I ended up getting my extra within, I think, like the first year and a half, and I don't know. I did a lot of mobile on 40 meters. I would check into the noontime net. I would check into the RV net. I would check into the um, Jefferson Noon net. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. Anyway, I lived all over the damn place, and mostly in Northern California, and I didn't stay anywhere very long. But I always put up a loop antenna whenever I had a chance, and it always did quite well for me. Dabbled in a little PSK 31. This is all before FT8 was even around, and let's see what else. I mean, digital was really a pain in the butt back then. It wasn't easy, and anybody could be on any frequency, and you had to kind of tune to them and find them. Imagine having to find people on FT8, but with a quarter of the people on there. But when I moved here, I found the group of guys on 3913 and 7IU and those guys and all the other people that he knew, and it was a lot of fun on there talking, because there was techie people on there too, like Alex K6AFS, and none of those guys are on there anymore. They're all gone. They're not dead. Alex doesn't get on the radio anymore. Jim, I haven't heard Jim in a while. He's in Fish Lake, Nevada, so maybe he's too close or something. I don't know. And then the rest of the time, if they're not on there, there's Blabbermouth Eddie, who just never stops talking. He owns the frequency. He's a nice guy, but it's just like, dude, let somebody else get in there. You're not net control. And so that was kind of why we had started that other group. But anyway, that's another story. So there's all these guys that used to be on there. K6ODI used to pop in there. Who else? I don't know. There's just a bunch of, and there was a whole bunch of guys back east that I usually couldn't hear, and usually Eddie would be talking to them, and Eddie would be talking to those guys and guys out here, and it was a lot of fun. But when Alex was on there, we had a lot of fun because we would talk about different radios, and we'd even I remember I bought my first 901, and he walked me through it on troubleshooting what might have been wrong with it over the air, and we found some of the problems. But I actually did end up having to send it to him, and but I mean, that was to me, that was a lot of fun, because to me, ham radio is about experimentation and learning things and fixing things and resurrecting things and making use out of old broken junk. It's not, to me, ham radio is not about going out and buying a new FTDX 101 or a new IC 7610 or a Flex radio or a Kenwood 990 and then buying all these really expensive stuff. That's not ham radio. That's like golfing or something. That's for rich people. That's not ham radio. Those guys don't know how to fix anything. They don't know how to do anything. How is that ham radio? That's appliance operators. A true ham operator knows how to fix things, or at least they're not afraid to try. They're not afraid of failure. A real ham operator doesn't just go out and pass all the tests by memorizing the questions on QRZ and go buy a new 101 and a new Mercury amplifier and a Buckmaster dipole and string it all up and and yuck it up with their buddies on 40 and 80 meters. That's an appliance operator. That's not a ham operator, and that's not what I got into this hobby for. And I didn't get into this hobby to have conversations with those kind of people, because there's nothing you can say to them. All they want to do is talk about the damn weather, man. I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about your doctor's appointment unless you're my best friend. Okay? If I'm close to you, then I want to know because I care. But for like casual people, whatever, I don't want to talk about the weather. Even if I know you really well, I don't really want to talk about the weather. I want to talk about ham radio projects or other hobbies or other things that are interesting. I didn't spend thousands of dollars on radios to sit here and talk about the weather. I didn't do it. That's not why I bought my stuff. I've got a couple of new radios, but they're not fun. What's the point of a radio that just works? I mean, there's no adventure there. I mean, to me, finding radios and deals and bargains and fixing stuff and taking on a challenge that somebody else doesn't want to do or whatever, building antennas, fixing broken radios, trying to fix broken radios, that's ham radio for me, buddy. So I don't talk on the radio anymore because there really just isn't anything to talk about. I don't want to hear about the radio, and I don't want to talk about your doctor's appointments, and I don't want to. I'm not going to talk to a bunch of guys on a drama frequency, and I don't want to argue with people on the radio. I don't want to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about radio stuff, tech stuff, computer stuff, 3D printing. But it seems like nobody's interested in that. So, I don't know. And I'm not interested in contesting, but I mean, like, that makes more sense to me than sitting here talking about the damn weather. I do enjoy 20 meters in the evening when it's open later and getting to talk to some of the guys in Europe and, those places. That's fun. But yeah, man, these new appliance operator type of hams that seem to be the most common, and the extra wide sideband guys and all that, man, that is not my cup of tea. That's not ham radio. So anyway, I'm sure somebody's going to be offended by this, and that's okay. You don't have to watch my videos. You don't have to subscribe to my channel. Nobody's, holding your hand and making you do it. So, catch you guys later.